All right, so we've got a crazy stack of entertainment industry news this week.
Yeah, it's quite the pyre.
We've got global news, festival updates, even some press releases. It's like a snapshot of what's happening right now in entertainment, like 2025 in a nutshell.
It really is. I mean, and we're not just looking at the events themselves, but the forces that are shaping the industry as a whole.
So, let's break it down. First up, the global scene. You flagged those tax breaks that Australia is giving free-to-air broadcasters.
Right.
And then the Czech Republic's offering incentives to try and attract international productions. I
Yeah.
mean, it seems like countries are realizing they can't just sit back and let the streaming giants kind of gobble up all the market share. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It's like this arms race, but instead of weapons, it's content.
That's a great way to put it. It's like a content arms race. Governments are definitely in a tough spot, though. They want to support their local industries, of course.
Right.
But they also recognize the cultural and economic benefits of hosting those big international productions.
It's a tough balancing act.
Yeah, it really
Come
is.
film here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, we'll make it worth your while.
Exactly. Come spend your money here. What do you think this means for content creation in the future? Is every country going to become like a mini Hollywood?
Hmm. That's a really interesting question. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. What's really fascinating to me is that it seems like governments are starting to understand the power of storytelling. They're not just looking at the economic benefits, they're also looking at how these productions shape global perceptions of their country, right?
It's like a form of cultural diplomacy almost.
Exactly. It's cultural diplomacy through film and television.
Not just about the money. It's about using stories to promote their national identity and their values, maybe even tourism.
Exactly. It's all connected.
So it's fascinating, right? And speaking of balancing acts, Hollywood itself is also trying to find its footing in this landscape. Domestic box office, I mean, it's projected to hit $9.7 billion this year.
Which is a recovery.
It is. But studios are still playing it cautious.
Mhm.
At the same time, content spending is leaning heavily towards streaming. Disney's leading the pack with a whopping $35.8 billion.
Yeah, that's a huge number.
It's massive, right? So it makes me wonder, are we going to see fewer of those big spectacle films in theaters? Are studios only going to take risks on stories they think will work on streaming? What do you think?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, it's a question everyone in Hollywood's asking right now. And I think this shift towards streaming is definitely forcing a change in how projects get greenlit.
Okay.
Like writers are now having to create more production-ready drafts up front.
Production ready. What does that even mean?
Yeah, I mean, basically, they have to flesh out the entire season in detail before the studio will even commit to filming a pilot.
Wow.
Yeah,
So more work for the writers, but less certainty that they'll even get paid.
it's a tough situation for sure.
It sounds rough.
It is, and this financial pressure, it's trickling down to the showrunners, too.
Oh, the showrunners.
Yeah, the people who are responsible for the day-to-day creative vision of a show.
Right. So let's talk about these showrunners. Now, in our prep notes, you mentioned something called if-come deals, and
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea what that means, honestly.
Yeah, so basically an if-come deal is basically a writer will work, for months, maybe even a year, developing a show.
Okay.
But they only get paid if the studio actually decides to make it.
What?
Yeah.
So they could be pouring their heart and soul into a project and has zero guarantee of ever getting paid.
Yeah, it's a huge gamble.
That's a gamble.
Yeah, it really is.
And, I mean, doesn't that also have consequences for the types of stories we actually see on screen?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if writers are constantly under pressure to deliver, like a surefire hit,
Right.
they're going to be less willing to take risks on bold, original ideas, right?
Exactly. I mean, if everyone's just chasing the next big thing,
Right.
we're going to end up with a lot of the same stuff.
So less diversity in storytelling, fewer chances for new voices to break through.
That's a real concern.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it is something to think about.
Now, I know we've been talking about serious stuff, but you also flagged some interesting news about the global appeal of, well, British humor.
Oh, yeah, this is one of my favorite trends to watch.
You mentioned that shows like Dairy Girls and Kunk on Earth are resonating with young audiences across Europe.
They are, and they're spreading through social media like wildfire.
I mean, the report actually said that they love the unique blend of irony and intelligence in British humor. I've seen clips of Kunk on Earth,
Oh, it's so funny.
and it's hilarious. So, I mean, is it just about the humor, though? Are young people craving content that feels different from, your typical Hollywood fare? What do you think this tells us about global content creation going forward?
That's a great question. I think there's definitely a growing appetite for content that feels authentic and relatable no matter where it comes from.
Yeah,
Like Dairy Girls, for example. It's a very specific story about growing up in Northern Ireland during the Troubles.
right.
But it resonates with people all over the world because it taps into these universal themes of friendship, family, and coming of age.
Yeah, exactly.
And Kunk on Earth, well, let's just say Philomena Kunk's unique brand of cluelessness seems to be a universal language.
Cluelessness is funny no matter where you're from.
It really is.
But speaking of things that resonate across cultures, let's talk about some of those executive moves you highlighted in the news this week.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's like musical chairs, but with really talented people.
Right.
Like that Pixar exec jumping ship to Sony Pictures, promotions within animation studios, new head of development at Questlove's production company, even a veteran Spanish producer switching gears to work on The Voice Spain.
It's a real talent shuffle, and what I find interesting is that we're seeing a lot of cross-pollination between film, television, and digital platforms.
Okay, so a lot of crossover.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
experience like really highly valued now?
I think so. It seems like companies want leaders who have, weathered a few storms,
Yep,
who can navigate this crazy, unpredictable market.
makes sense. You want someone who's not going to like freak out when the box office numbers take a dip or a streaming deal falls through.
Yeah, exactly. Someone who's been there, done that.
Okay, but this crossover between industries, what do you think it tells us about the direction entertainment is heading? Is everything just becoming one big melting pot of content?
I think it points to a blurring of the lines between these different forms of entertainment, for sure.
Okay.
At the end of the day, a good story is a good story. Whether it's on a big screen, your TV, or your phone, and those executives who are moving between industries, they're bringing their expertise and their perspective with them, which I think could lead to some really interesting and innovative projects.
Yeah. So melting pot of content, experienced captains steering the ships, so to speak.
Yeah.
What about the festivals? We got some updates on those too, right?
Yes. Festivals are always a hotbed of new talent, fresh ideas.
Right.
This year, it seems like they're really grappling with the evolving role of technology in filmmaking.
Okay.
The AI Film Festival, for example.
Yeah, what is that?
It's a festival that showcases films created entirely by artificial intelligence.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
AI creating films. That's fascinating and a little terrifying, to be honest. What do those even look like? Can AI actually be creative?
That's the big question, isn't it? And honestly, I don't think we have all the answers yet.
Yeah.
It's definitely a conversation that's happening in the industry right now.
Right.
Some people see AI as a tool, something that can augment human creativity,
Right.
while others worry that it might eventually replace human artists altogether.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's something to keep an eye on, for sure.
So wait and see, I guess. What other trends are we seeing at the festivals?
Well, one that caught my eye was that the Dublin Film Festival is celebrating the 25th anniversary of Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girls. Wait, that show about a quirky mother-daughter duo in a small town?
That's the one.
Okay.
Yeah. What's that doing at a film festival? Well, I think it speaks to the enduring power of television,
Okay.
especially shows that capture a specific time and place
Right.
and resonate with audiences across generations. Gilmore Girls was incredibly well-written, sharp dialogue, memorable characters.
It's a good show.
It was. It might not be a traditional film, but it's still a powerful example of storytelling.
So a good story is a good story, no matter what the medium.
I think that's right.
Are any other festivals doing things that are, I don't know, surprising?
Absolutely. Several festivals like the Sarajevo Film Festival and CPH Conference are really focusing on social impact
Okay.
and the role of storytelling in addressing, important issues. They're
Yeah.
showcasing films and documentaries that tackle things like climate change, social justice, human rights. I think it's so inspiring to see these festivals using their platform to amplify these important voices.
Yeah, it's cool that film and television could be such powerful tools for raising awareness and sparking conversations about things that matter.
Absolutely.
So the festivals, I guess they're kind of like an indicator of what's, bubbling up in the industry.
They are, like a window into the future.
Exactly. Now, what about the news on specific projects like development? Did anything catch your eye?
Oh, definitely. It seems like networks are still eager to capitalize on successful franchises.
Oh, of course.
There's a Blue Bloods spin-off in the works at CBS.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called Boston Blue. And it's, Donnie Wahlberg's character, Danny Reagan, is moving to Boston and teaming up with a new partner.
Oh, so it's like a whole new setting.
Yeah, exactly. But then there's also a lot of fresh content in development, too.
Okay, like what?
Like Apple TV Plus has a limited series called Imperfect Women,
Interesting.
which is directed by the brilliant Leslie Linka Glatter.
Oh, wow.
And it stars Elizabeth Moss and Kerry Washington.
Okay, that sounds good. Elizabeth Moss always picks fascinating projects. What's it about?
Well, it's a psychological thriller based on a novel, and it follows three friends whose lives are shattered by a crime.
Okay, intense.
Yeah, sounds intense. And then there's Bring Her Back,
Okay.
which is a new horror flick from the directors of Talk to Me.
Oh, the movie that got all the buzz.
That's the one.
Okay.
And it did really well.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and Bring Her Back stars Sally Watkins.
Oh, I love her.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
So we've got franchise expansions, psychological thrillers, horror flicks.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, there's a lot cooking in the development kitchen.
What else is in there?
Well, there's a music-themed rom-com in the works.
Okay.
A docuseries about MMA fighters.
Cool.
Even a series inspired by, the real-life Natalia Grace case.
Oh, wow.
The range of stories being developed is really incredible.
Yeah, it sounds like there's truly something for everyone.
There is, from lighthearted rom-coms to hard-hitting true crime.
Speaking of hard-hitting, we talked earlier about the challenges facing the people who are actually creating this content.
Right.
What kind of pressures are these productions facing?
Well, I think balancing creativity with budgetary constraints is a big one.
Yeah.
I read that news about Bryony Hopkins and her Bang Theory presentation at the Telecast Digital Content Forum.
Oh, right.
And it was really eye-opening.
Yeah.
She's developed this, four-step method for producing high-quality content efficiently.
Okay.
Which, that's something a lot of people in the industry are trying to figure out right now.
So how to make great stuff without breaking the bank.
Exactly.
Easier said than done, probably.
Yeah, for sure.
And those a couple deals we talked about earlier, I'm guessing those aren't really helping the situation.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
It's a tough landscape for writers, especially if you're just starting out.
Right.
The industry seems to want their creativity, but they're not always willing to fully commit until they see results.
It's like a catch-22.
It is.
You need experience to get the good jobs, but it's hard to get experience if no one's willing to take a chance on you.
Right.
You know?
It's tough.
It seems like with all these trends, the industry's kind of being pulled in two opposite directions.
Yeah, that's a good observation.
On one hand, you've got this incredible expansion of content, all these new platforms emerging, global audiences hungry for diverse stories.
Right.
But on the other hand, you've got this consolidation of power and resources.
Yeah.
With just a handful of companies controlling, a large portion of the market.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder, with all this change, all this content,
Yeah.
what stories are not being told? Whose voices are we still missing from the conversation?
That's a really important question. I think we need to be mindful of the potential for homogeneity in this new landscape.
Homogeneity, right?
Yeah, just because something is popular doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
And just because something is different doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah, totally.
We need to make sure we're not sacrificing quality and diversity in the pursuit of profits,
Yeah, totally. So how do we strike that balance? How do we make sure the future of entertainment is, both profitable and creatively fulfilling?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I don't think there's a simple answer. I think it starts with recognizing the value of diverse voices and perspectives.
Okay.
It's about supporting the creators who are pushing boundaries and telling stories that challenge us, inspire us, and help us see the world in new ways.
Yeah.
It's also about being, conscious consumers.
Okay.
Seeking out content that aligns with our values.
Yeah.
And making choices that support the kind of entertainment we actually want to see in the world.
So it's on us too, right?
It is.
You mentioned earlier that you'd spotted a trend of digital-first content kind of finding its way to mainstream platforms.
Oh, yeah.
Like Netflix snatching up Blue Therapy, that YouTube counseling series.
Right.
Do you think this is a sign that maybe the gatekeepers are starting to loosen their grip a little bit?
I think it's definitely a sign that the lines between traditional media and digital content are blurring.
Right.
The streaming giants like Netflix, they're realizing that audiences are hungry for authentic, relatable stories.
Right.
And those stories can come from anywhere. Blue Therapy is a perfect example.
Yeah.
It started as a tiny YouTube channel, but it gained this huge following
Right.
because it offered a raw and honest look at, the challenges of modern relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
And Netflix saw the potential in that, and they decided to bring it to a wider audience.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the future of entertainment? Are we headed towards a world where everyone's a content creator?
What do you think?
Honestly, I'm not sure, but I'm really excited to see what happens next.
Me too.
I mean, we've talked about global trends, financial pressures, the power of festivals, and the rise of digital-first content.
We have.
But it feels like we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, there's always more to explore.
Always.
But I think this has been a great starting point, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
We've laid out some of the key trends and challenges that are shaping the industry, and I think we've really started to think about what they mean for the future of entertainment.
Yeah, definitely. So we've covered so much ground already. Global trends, festivals, digital going mainstream. But where is this crazy train of entertainment headed? What do you think?
Predictions. Oh, I don't have a crystal ball or anything. But I do think the clues are all around us.
Okay, yeah.
Like, remember those government incentives we talked
Yeah.
about? It's not just about money and economics, right? It's like countries are realizing that entertainment has this, like, soft power.
Soft power, yeah. You mean the ability to, like, shape perceptions, influence culture without, force.
Exactly. Instead of sending tanks, you send, like, a really compelling TV show.
So it's like projecting your national identity, your values,
Yeah,
maybe even boosting tourism a little.
all of that.
So, I mean, are you saying there's like a global narrative being shaped through the stories we consume?
I think so, yeah. And then you've got technology evolving at, like, warp speed.
Right. AI, immersive experiences.
Exactly. It's all blurring the lines between reality and fiction, creator and audience.
It's kind of like stepping into a choose-your-own-adventure, but for the whole industry.
Yeah,
Like, we get to decide what we see, how we experience it, even who we want to be in those stories.
it's amazing, isn't it? But that level of agency, it comes with challenges too.
Oh, for sure.
Like, what happens to the traditional gatekeepers?
Right. Yeah, good point.
What about the ethics of AI-created content?
Yeah, it's tricky.
And do we risk, like, ending up in these echo chambers where we only see what the algorithms think we want?
So more freedom, but also maybe more responsibility.
It's a trade-off, for sure. I mean, it's not just about individual taste anymore, right?
Right.
Our choices are shaped by, like, social circles, by those sneaky algorithms.
Yeah.
It's this complex ecosystem in constant flux.
But, I mean, through all of that, it seems like the constant is still, like, the power of a good story.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what the tech is, the platform, the budget. That's what ultimately hooks us, right?
It is. It's that human need to connect, to find meaning, to escape.
Exactly.
That's what fuels our appetite for stories. And the amazing thing is that those stories can come from anywhere, from anyone.
Yeah, so looking ahead, is the future of entertainment, like, totally open-ended? Like a choose-your-own-adventure meets a global dance within this, like, ever-evolving ecosystem?
Yeah, I think that sums it up perfectly. It's a kaleidoscope of possibilities, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah.
The only thing that's certain is that it will surprise us, challenge us, and ultimately, connect us in ways we can't even imagine yet.
So no easy answers for our listeners today.
Not this time. But that's kind of the beauty of it, isn't it? The journey is just as important as the destination.
Yeah, I like that.
And as we keep exploring these trends, I'm sure even more questions, insights, moments will emerge.
And that's what makes the deep dive so fun. We're not just skimming the surface here.
Right.
We're diving deep into the heart of the industry, and you're right there with us.
And remember, you're not just an observer. You're actively shaping this future with every choice you make as a consumer.
So keep those questions coming, keep exploring, keep those aha moments flowing. Until next time, happy diving, everyone.